Welcome back, guys. Here on Select Few, we have Shandra Colon here to show us what's up and female entrepreneurship.
Yes, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Pleasure's mine.
Thank you.
So let's tell us what the secrets are to your entrepreneurship over.
The secrets: resiliency,
Okay.
grit. I do not believe you're born with that. That's developed.
Okay.
Passion, discipline, and courage.
Those are
That's the
really
recipe.
good. That's
Yeah.
a lot of people will be grateful to know that and feel that and understand what that actually means. Being a female entrepreneur in today's world, it's hard.
Yes.
What do you think the biggest hurdles are right now being a female entrepreneur?
So I don't think the hurdles have changed very much. I think you still have people who believe that we're the inferior sex and think that we are to be in more of a support role versus actually lead. And ironically, I'm in a male-dominated industry. I've worked with men my entire life, doesn't matter what career path it was in. And I think there's a stigma around women that women are, more emotional, more catty, more this, or can't work together. But what I find ironic is that most of the men that I've worked with who are at a high level, when it's time to actually come together and succeed at teamwork, they are by far more emotional than the women in the room.
Being in a male atmosphere in construction where we don't have a lot of women, I can tell you that's the truth. Men are emotional.
Yes.
It's
We like to pretend like we're not, though.
it's wild, right? Because it's like, I don't know if it's become that way. Men have kind of lost their way as far as, like, you're built tough back in the day, right? The foundations of what your grandfather was raised on when they came over here into America, right? So it's like they seem to get more feminine, and not in a derogatory way, but it seems like they're
We're getting soft.
man in the construction industry that I can actually discuss on is they seem a lot softer than what I remember my granddaddy and his granddaddy being, and I'm not quite sure why that is, and but I totally get where you're coming from. What do you think is the cause for women in the entrepreneur industry, or just in business in general? Why do you think men still feel so superior since times have changed so much?
So I want to dial it back to what you were saying about men are softer now. So I think there's been a narrative that has been told to our men since the beginning of time that they had to be dominant, that they had to rule, that they couldn't share their emotions, they couldn't cry, they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. And that's not healthy. So I think what's happened now is our men are getting help for the first time. They're learning how to communicate versus just dictate. And I think that is so new to this generation that it's coming off like, oh, our men are soft now. No, I think our men are in a time of adjustment where they haven't quite found the balance yet of still being a leader and a role model. And I don't even want to use the word alpha, because the truth of the matter is not every man is an alpha male. They're not, and that's okay. So I think it's just, again, we're trying to figure out where's that balance to where we can still be vulnerable, right? But still be that strong undergirding for our family, because you still need to be like that strong base no matter what. But you can do that in a different way now. When it comes to the workplace, I think that it's a challenge there as well, because, again, they're not used to having to communicate with others in a healthy way. Right. They're used to just making demands or commands, and it's this way and no way, because that's even how it was in the family dynamic. A lot of people like to split up like work life and home life. Mm-hmm. But the truth of the matter is it doesn't work that way. You bring in the same conditioning. from your home life into your work life. Sure. And if you're missing something or you're being mistreated at home and you're not respected, then you come to work and it shows up differently. Then you want to command respect from everybody. You want to show dominance in front of everybody.
Become aggressive.
Because at home you're for some reason diminished. And that's male or female. So now I want to go back to answering the question that you asked me, but you'll have to ask me again because I don't remember.
You're right. You're completely right. I started crying about 6 months ago for the first time in my entire life because I was conditioned on what I was raised on, right? Men don't cry, throw some dirt on it. If you want to do it right, do it yourself. And you're right, you do bring that into the workplace. And I think, you hit the nail on the head with that one. It's, as a man who has battled that myself, right? It's like, I enjoy crying now.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's, and you go back to, raised on, women are at home, supporting the household, taking care of the kids, and not so much focusing on what a men's role was supposed to be as well, where it's a partnership.
Right.
And you're right. We've carried that into the workplace too.
Yes.
And I think that's a great thing for this audience to learn as well, because we're teaching them the do's and the don'ts as you become an entrepreneur.
Right.
And really, if you can get your foundation and your fundamentals right from the get, then you're going to have a better work-life balance.
Yep.
You're going to have a better, overall career because you're going to be able to work with men and women alike, equally, and not, only talk to the men, right? The man makes the decision, because we all know it's not the case anymore.
Right.
And that's what's so important. And that's why I'm so glad you're on the show, because you can give us that perspective that we're missing, and I speak for myself as a man, but we miss that. We've missed that mark for so long now, and we've got to change how people think and react to women in general.
Yes.
And so in your entrepreneurial journey, do you feel like it's changing now versus, say, when you first started your journey?
Yeah, I would say it's a slow evolution. I think there's still the stigmas where, if you're a woman in business, how did you get to that position? Was it somebody you were dating that was in a powerful position and they elevated you? God forbid you be attractive and intelligent, because then people have to create stories around that.
Right.
Well, you're only there because, you're pretty and, oh, you must have been sleeping with the boss. That's old school, but it's still prevalent today.
Of course. Yeah.
Same stories. The stories haven't changed much, sadly. Or if you're at a high level, they're just going to assume that you're difficult.
Right?
They're just going to assume it.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, if you are challenging to work with as a woman who's been in business for a long time, you didn't wake up that way.
Yeah.
You have fought some serious battles to be seen and heard and respected in the room for your work.
Right.
It's like double as far as how difficult it is to secure work. You're qualified, but you're a woman. Still to this day, they would rather give it to a man.
And I don't think you're wrong from what I've seen. We see this in big multi-level roles. We just recently saw Elon Musk actually bring in a female CEO, which is amazing.
Right.
We recently hired a female general manager. Yeah. It didn't work out, but that was the direction we're trying to go.
Right.
It's, we're looking at everybody the same, man or woman. It doesn't
Right.
matter to us. It's all about the experience and how they can run with things.
Right. And isn't it interesting how, when we say, Elon Musk just hired a female CEO and that's amazing. We still have to say that's amazing.
What do we think the hang up is in the mindset? Because the world in general has just changed over the last 10 years. It's changed, and we've had a lot of forward steps and backward steps, right? Why are we not seeing it move at a faster pace? You think it's just a lot of old people? You know, like, is it just, you know, because I mean, like, you take your congressional
Yeah,
leaders,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
they're old, they're ancient,
Right.
they need to go retire.
Right.
But yet they're here still making demands and decisions from a
Yeah.
60s and 70s mindset.
Absolutely.
You know, which
Yeah.
we can't, as a America, we can't grow, we can't
Right.
change, we can't adapt with where we should be.
Right. Right.
And that's my hang up on a lot of, you know, what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the majority still rule, so it's going to move at their pace, and it's going to take the next generation to continue to propel it forward. Is it going to be fast? Never will be.
Yeah.
As long as it's progression, I mean, even having a podcast like this and talking about it, we have to hope and pray that it's encouraging our young men and our young women, like our own kiddos, to
Right.
share this message and push for that when they see that, you know, there's a woman in an organization that should have been promoted long before them, you know, even speaking up or even asking a company, like, where's their spend?
Sure.
Like, what's the breakdown of who they spend their money with in their supply chain? They're not going to like those questions. If it's a public company, you can look it up. Private
Right.
company, not going to happen.
There's a lot more private than there are
Not going to
not.
happen. Oh, absolutely. Especially depending upon, again, like the area that you're in.
So you mentioned the you know, the next generation, and I get discouraged when I think about that generation.
Yeah.
Because it feels like, you know, they're so stuck on likes. They're so stuck on, you know, got to have this to look like this to this other people. Like, do you feel like that can hinder our growth in society?
Absolutely.
Definitely changing it.
Oh, massively. And for the worse, because you can see the decline in mental health that's been tied to the use of social media, because we're comparing like non-reality with non-reality. It's based on it's based on a perception, right? And not reality. So depression is up.
It's huge.
Everything regarding mental health is just continuing. Now that's what's progressively moving upward. And it's because, you know, we're seeing things on social media that are not healthy. We don't think we're enough. I mean, I think we all go through periods in our life where we're struggling with feeling like, are we enough? What value do I bring? Am I worthy of XYZ? We have those thoughts without social media. I had all that growing up without social media. Now, like, add social media to it, and you really think you're supposed to be way further ahead than
Just
where you are.
intensifies all those
You know?
feelings.
Or everybody's supposed to be an entrepreneur. No, they're not. No. Like, selling that is bad.
Yeah.
It's just bad.
Well, and that's exactly what we've been trying to. That's the reason for the podcast, because people don't understand that there's a lot that goes in with the entrepreneur.
Right.
Not everybody has to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody is built to be an entrepreneur. But there's a lot of things you actually are negative with being an entrepreneur in a sense.
Yes.
And you know, there's plenty of motivational people out there that show the private jets and the Lamborghinis and the big houses, but that's what these kids want to see.
Right.
You know, they don't spend the time thinking about these current issues and situation with men and women equality and gap pay and where society has gone. They just want to live this false reality.
Right.
And that's what I fear, especially with women entrepreneurs, women in management, women CEOs, is that I don't want them to get discouraged along the way because they see something else on social media and they see something that, you know, isn't reality.
Right.
How do we reach young women? You know, not just men, young women out there who dream of being an entrepreneur one day, you know, opening up their own salon.
Right.
You know, starting their own nonprofit, you know, opening up, you know, even an automotive store or something, whatever it is that intrigues them. Like, what can we do to connect with them and show them that it is completely possible?
Yeah, I mean, you have to make yourself available to the mentoring and sponsoring them, putting them in rooms that they can't put themselves into because they're not connected yet. A lot of times people have a dream, they don't know how to execute, they don't understand how to get funding, an SBA loan, and people prey upon your lack of knowledge. So, you know, there'll be third-party entities out there that, oh, if you pay me this, I'll do your SBA loan, or pay me this and I'll help you get your certification. Well, really, you don't need to do any of that.
Right.
You can actually you can do it yourself. These things aren't difficult, but they are if you're intimidated by the process. Most of the time, you're just intimidated by the process. Like, I'm not going to be able to answer these questions, or I bet I'm not going to have that paperwork. You don't even know yet. So, there's already, workshops for small businesses and all these different resources. But I find that it gets overwhelming. It's almost like when you want a referral for something, you can go to Google or you can go to your Facebook friends and post it there, because if you Google it, you're like overwhelmed with all the information. And sometimes I'd rather just post it to my friends on Facebook.
Sure.
Than go to the internet and, 100,000
You could get
responses.
so many variations.
Yeah, exactly.
What you're supposed to
And you
do.
don't know what's right, what's wrong.
Yep.
Then you create more fear.
Yes.
And then it pushes you further from your dream and your goals.
But those people, those young women, they have to meet you halfway, meaning the resources can be out there, but you can't sit back and wait for someone to come get you out of the seat and go
Right.
to the workshops, go to the seminars on funding. They're all available. You got to get up and go.
You gotta search them out.
You cannot just, that's the difference in, the dreamers and the ones that are actually
making it
making
happen.
it, because it's never the person with the best idea. It's never the person with the most talent. It's the person that gets up and has forward progression with it. When we see that even in entertainment, the best singers aren't the ones that are quote unquote winning, that are famous.
Right.
No, it's the ones that are kind of like halfway talented, but
They put in the most work.
they put in the most work.
Yeah.
And they built the relationships. Everything is a relationship business. Every business is a relationship business.
Yeah, I mean, the other day on this award show, I was watching on a music award show, this female artist, I think it's Female Artist of the Year, she's like, if you're going to be a dreamer, be a doer.
Right.
And I was like, that resonates for not just men or women.
Right.
It's literally like legitimately get up and you can do this.
Right.
Believe in yourself first.
That's so much better than hearing, follow your dreams. No, actually, everyone should not follow their dreams.
Yeah. I'm not doing my dream right now, okay? This is fun, but this wasn't ever my dream.
Yeah.
And I've learned that too along the way. Is sometimes you fall into something you just become good at, and then you stick in the cycle.
And sometimes you don't have to make money at your dream.
Right. That's the key, right?
Yeah, but you're told if you just do what you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Stop it. Stop it. It's bad messaging. It's just bad.
Still got to pay rent.
Because really, exactly. You still have to make money. But whatever that you love, you can still do it, but it doesn't have to be the main source of your income for it to be valuable.
Where people get trapped in it.
Yes.
I have to make money from this hobby that I have or this thing that I love, and they get stuck trying to do it when it's not really going to work.
I agree 1,000% with that. Yeah.
It's the sad reality, and that's the message we want to put out to try to save people from making certain mistakes. Because follow your dreams, follow your goals, but there's also reality to that, right?
Yes.
We have to obviously make money to live.
Right.
You don't have to have a Lamborghini to be happy.
Right.
You you can still have an amazing life and not have these things that people want you to idolize. You know, and stop idolizing every person out there.
Right.
Don't need their life. You just don't. You need your life.
Yes.
And you need to be a wholesome and amazing life. Filled with love and family and unity, not things.
Purpose.
Purpose. That's a great word, purpose.
Is such a driving force for anything that I do. And I would say for most people, that's the thing that's going to get you up the next day. When there's no purpose, that's when I feel like depression sets in. When you feel like you're lost and you don't know what you're supposed to be doing. When you question why you're here. When there's no goal to work towards. You don't have to conquer it, but something to work towards is very powerful.
Sure.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I'm a firm believer that you should set, 1, 3, and 5 year goals. Sometimes a long-term goal, And it's nice to have goals, and I think it could help you if you had the mindset to be a doer.
Right.
It's the people who don't care about what's next. It's the, fly by the seat of their pants and not think about things. That's the scariest thing. It's but then sometimes it's the opposite. I sat on doing this company for a long time. Years. Because I was never ready. Getting ready to get ready is what I always say.
Oh,
and it's like, you're never going to be ready.
No.
There's no perfect moment. No. It's like asking somebody out, right? Is there ever a perfect moment? No. You're just waiting.
You might catch them on a good day. You don't know.
You might. Or it just becomes randomly organic and weird, you know, but you just have to just go for it. Right. But you nailed it when you said mentor. Mm-hmm. That's something that we're preaching here, is that get yourself a mentor. I had no mentor.
Yes.
I had no person in my corner until I had money. It wasn't until there was money coming in that people were like, hey, I can help you. Well, where were you when I was broke as heck? Like, come on, show me how to get there and not make, thousands and hundreds of $1,000s worth of mistakes.
Right.
Show me what I can do right, and not reinvent the wheel every single time like human nature does. And
That's a blessing and a curse, because I can see two perspectives on that. It's early on and you don't have mentorship. 9 times out of 10, you're going to waste, and you might as well just flush some money down the toilet, because you don't have the wisdom there to say, that's going to cost you. At the same time, it's really hard once you have some level of success, whatever that looks like to you. Say it's like your first $100,000 and you haven't made any mistakes yet. Now, like, we tend to get a little arrogant with it and a little loosey-goosey with it. We haven't felt those pains, right? So then you might like wild out a little bit,
right,
before you even should. So I feel like some of those early childbearing pains, because growing a business is like friggin' labor and delivery in a way. Like, they're good for you if they don't take you out. And I think that's the difference in some of us and some others.
Sure.
Because if you get taken out, the people that I gravitate towards the most are the ones that get taken out and freaking start all over again. Like, they've been in the ditch and they've had to crawl and make their way back out, and they go at it again. I'm like, yes.
Failure is the best teacher there is. You have to.
Oh, and it's awful, but yes.
And that's the biggest thing people fear is failure. Right. And that applies to all aspects.
That's the only way you get growth.
It's true.
It's a horrible path, but you have to go down it.
Yes. And I thought I feared failure with this is, I'm going to start this company, and we talked about this in previous episodes, but it's like I feared failure for myself, but how people were going to view me who supported me.
Yes.
Not so much for me directly.
Right.
I felt like I was failing the world if I failed.
You didn't want to let people down.
Right.
Yeah.
And how do you overcome that? And
right.
It took me a minute. It took me, I got real humbled.
A
lot.
This journey will do that. I'll tell you a quick little story. So I've been an entrepreneur for over a decade now. And when I first went into entrepreneurship, it was in real estate. To this day, I still have a real estate license. I think it's one of the best investments anyone could ever make. I think I spent $1,500 in education and licensing fees to become a realtor. And after having success with real estate, I was like, okay, I can do that. I now want to see what else I can do. So that was like the catalyst for me to keep trying other business ventures. And I did some coaching along the way, and built a business development company built around my ability to build strategic partnerships. And early on, when I did small business consulting, I could just consult for any small business. It didn't matter what industry they were in, because it all kind of applies for the most part. Like, how do you scale? How do you get new clients? So I don't care if you're selling software or cattle or insulation or hats. It doesn't matter. So I found myself doing that. I enjoyed it. And then I tumbled into construction, and I didn't know anything about the commercial construction space. Nothing. I only knew about residential building because I'd helped clients build homes from the ground up. So when I went into the construction space, I realized that there was a major gap with minority firms and their ability to navigate big public entities. And so I decided I want to make that a business, a niche where you could hire me for contract business development. And so when I transitioned to construction only and not doing anything else, there was a time when my youngest son was in high school and he was working at, I think it was Foot Locker, and he's killing it in commissions. He's sales. And I had 49 cents in my bank account. But all the time that I needed to pour into this new business venture to only focus on construction, it prohibited me from doing things on the side, like going and closing other business. I couldn't do it. I needed to just focus. And I had a business coach and mentor. At that time, we were probably 5-6 years in. And I called him and I said, I have 49 cents. My son, my 16-year-old, has more money in his account than I do. At what point is this just irresponsible? Right? It's like, I got a car note, house payment, bills, just bills, water bill, light bill, life. Got to put gas in the car. At this time, I was living over here in Collin County, but all the business was in Dallas. And so my daily commute back and forth was insane because sometimes I'd go in the morning and then come home by 3 o'clock to miss the traffic, wait for my son to come home, cook at 5, and it'd be just like a casserole or whatever, but I'd make sure he'd have something to eat. And then I would leave and drive back to Dallas for whatever dinner I needed to go to, because everything that I do is about networking and meeting people. Drive back to Dallas again for dinners and then drive back home. A lot of times that might be 10 o'clock at night. But my business coach and mentor, he's not just a business coach. He's like really a spiritual advisor to me. He was like, you can look at it that way if you want to, or you can look at it like this is just what it's going to take, and how much longer can you stay in it? And I said, I feel like I'm going to have to ask somebody, like I'm going to have to borrow money from somebody, which for me is like the worst. Pride, all of that is the worst feeling for me. Because I've been making it on my own for a really long time.
Did any part of you say, let me just go get a normal job?
Yeah, of course. I thought it.
What am I doing?
Yes.
I need some money.
Yes. What am I doing? Is this just irresponsible? Like go sell a house. Like go get a real estate client really quickly. But I knew how much that would take out of me, because residential real estate, it's emotional buying. So you are more of a therapist a lot of the times than you are like advising on this home. And so, and the energy, like people don't understand how difficult selling and buying real estate is. They think that's another misconception. They think it's like so glamorous, right? That is a 7-day-a-week profession right there.
It's a huge part of people's lives. It's a big decision.
It's HGTV. It's so easy.
Oh,
you know, the guy that he harvests butterflies, you know, she sells bubble gum on the side. They got a $1.2 million house, and they do it in an hour's episode.
Yeah.
You know, and the realtor's happy.
Always.
Yeah.
Completely happy.
No.
Right? I've never met a sad realtor.
Shoot. That's because they're crying at midnight sitting at their desk because people are fighting over a $50 option check.
Yeah.
You know, that's the reality of it.
They didn't include the garden gnome in the deal, so there's no deal, right?
And people do that.
Yeah.
People will fight over the most ridiculous stuff. So that's why I couldn't do it and focus on this thing that I knew it was going to take off. But the timing was killing me. Because, again, back to, it's no perfect timing. When's the perfect time?
Right.
Like, it doesn't exist. And so I told my business coach, I'm like, well, I think I'm going to have to ask a friend of mine to borrow my rent for this month. And I did. So you want to talk about humbling yourself. Like, I'm a grown-ass woman with grown-ass kids, and I just had to ask somebody to help me pay my rent. But I will say, I have had some people in my life that have believed in me, that believed in me more than I believed in myself, and saw it in me and said, yeah.
So when
I
that
got you.
49 cents is sitting in your account, and let's say you didn't have this coach, this spiritual guide,
Yeah.
what was your thought before you even picked up that phone?
Everything he just said.
Like,
I need to go get a job.
yeah,
Like, I need to go get a job. It's not going to kill me. Just go get a part-time job or go sell a house. You have a fallback, meaning I always have means of making money, right? Because I've been a single parent for a very long time. And, I grew up conditioned and wired to survive. And so I've always set myself up in a way to where I know that I can go make money doing this, whatever it is. I mean, even when I'm 5, I'm your very like stereotypical like lemonade stand girl, but umpteen years ago because I'm in my 40s. So had my lemonade stand, sold out, went into my mom's refrigerator where we had very little and sold everything out of it because I loved it.
Yeah.
Even like I loved the hustle.
Yeah.
Like I loved it.
it's a burning feeling. It's something that's like, it's a good high in life is to feel like you did something. You had some kind of success,
Right.
even if it's, selling somebody's orange juice for, $1 when
Yeah.
they paid $3.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. I mean, I did, silly things like selling my mom cigarettes out of her fridge.
Yes.
It was a
Hey.
hustle.
No, for real.
My bad, Mom.
Yeah.
I think you knew, but that's why they went away quick,
Yep.
But you're right. But that's what I fear with this new generation is that drive that you have, the drive that I have,
Yeah.
the drive I've seen in your son. I feel like they're not there. The value that people are placing on themselves is falling. They're putting this value at, I need to be $100,000 a year, but I'm working at Taco Bell.
Right.
And it's like, but they don't want to do the work, even working there.
Right.
And that's what we're facing too in our industry and just all businesses is just employment shortages and this and that. And I think that's why you see a lot of businesses fail, and it's like it was their dream, but then it's like you can't hire the right people. They don't have mentors.
Right.
And so after you borrowed the money,
Yeah.
what happened?
I ended up with some new clientele
Okay.
within probably 60 days from that.
Yeah.
But I will say I took on a client that I knew I shouldn't have taken on. But out of desperation, I took that client on. And
What
so
made
I can
you know that you
even
shouldn't have taken them on?
Intuition.
Yeah, so a combination. Intuition, and I knew that this client's core values did not match mine. From the jump, there's no question about it.
As far as what? Just
I would just say ethics. I just knew that they would do anything, if you will. And I was concerned about that because I'm representing a brand. And is that a brand that I want to represent?
yeah, for sure.
And unfortunately, when you put yourself or you're in a position where you are down to 49 cents, sometimes you'll take on opportunities to survive that don't align. And those situations, they're there to teach you a lesson, which is, if you could have just held out a little bit longer, there was a better paying and a better aligned client down the road had you been a little patient. But my desperation and, that need to pay my friend back ASAP
led you down the wrong path.
Totally led me down the wrong path. Now, luckily, I didn't have to stay in it too long. There was actually something that happened that allowed us to part ways, like
Gracefully.
easily, gracefully. Thank you. But it was a lesson, like, never do that again. Phew, I'm so glad that I didn't get caught up in that, because it would have ruined my reputation. And at the end of the day, I'm leveraging my reputation all day.
And I've always been your word is bond, right? That's
Right.
you. Your reputation is what matters.
Right.
And I think it's admirable. You got to stand firm with what you believe.
Yeah.
Don't associate with people that you don't have the right intuition for.
In desperate times.
It
can be tough.
Desperate times can
Yes.
be a learning lesson. And we've all been there. I mean, in our industry, we've had plenty of people I don't want to do business with. But it's like, you just do it.
Do
And
they
then-
pay their bills? They pay their bill on time.
We have some of those
You
that,
know?
it's like you were worried about them, then they didn't pay their bill. Or
Right.
they called you every single day. There's another problem. You fix that problem. Oh, somehow there's a new problem.
Right.
And you just know.
Yes.
It's like, you just know there's a certain genre of professions that do that. There's a certain genre of people. They wake up mad at the world and they take it out on everybody else. And so, but then, there's a lot of misguided people.
Yes.
And it's but you can take that and build from that.
Yes.
And that's real important too. It's hard sometimes to look at the world of today and what we're all battling. It's hard enough just to be an entrepreneur, hard enough just to be really good at your job and wake
Yes.
up every day and be on time and be the best you are.
Right.
And then to go through this society with the way things are, and it's hard, But
And you lead people.
yeah.
I mean, you're an owner, so you're not just coming to work for yourself. You have the responsibility of feeling that pressure and that burden of guiding and leading, your staff, and making sure your business is sustaining or growing, or both.
And that's,
Yeah.
you're right, because I've looked at what I do here on a daily basis for our 30 employees, and it's like they go home and it stops, right? 5 o'clock comes around or 3 o'clock, whatever the time is, their job's over.
Right.
They just don't see the backside of what entrepreneurs are going through, or business owners, or even managers, CEOs, people that are responsible for their payroll, responsible for the people. And it's hard. It's discouraging at times, because it's like, I can go get this job over here for $300,000 and not even worry about it. And it's somebody else's problem.
Right.
So it is. It's there's that thing too that you face when you do own something, is you ask yourself a lot of times, is it worth it, or was it worth it? It just depends on where you're at.
Yes.
And so one of the topics I want to talk to you about is something that is new to me in my life lessons.
Okay.
And that is, I spent a lot of years not putting my family first. They were my motivation
Right.
financially. They motivated me to be the best that I could do and to theoretically be a workaholic.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, the tough man, I'm the provider, I'm, the hunter,
Right.
and so I spent a lot of my time working all hours of the day and night, because I always had the mindset, I can't wait till tomorrow,
Right.
even though it could.
Right.
And I thought just keeping money in the account was enough to keep them happy.
Right.
And so, in the last several months, my life's changed drastically. And how did being an entrepreneur affect your relationship with your children? Do you feel like,
That's a great question.
do you feel like
Yeah.
there's more you could have done that now that you didn't know then?
So I think it differs for my kiddos because there's an age gap. So when I had my oldest son, I was a kid. I was a teenager. I was 13 years old.
Wow.
So we did life together.
Right. That's
Literally
a different realm.
did
Yeah.
life together. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So early on, I was working what I would call your kind of typical jobs a teenager would work. I'm working at the mall.
Department stores and stuff like that.
Stuff like How about Blockbuster? I'm really telling my age.
I miss Blockbuster.
I'm
okay?
really telling my
I
age.
miss
right?
Blockbuster. You know, I'm ready to go backwards.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
like, can I buy the last Blockbuster there is in the world?
Yeah.
Like, let's do it. You know, like,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And I think my first quote unquote like real job where I felt success for the first time, I was like 16, 17 years old, and I'd gotten a job at a men's retail store in the mall. It was like a really popular store. It was like back then, I don't even know if they do this anymore, but we used to be able to play music loud in our stores in the mall. And so I killed it in sales. Like my commission checks were like way too good for a young person like me to have. But, and then I was so naive and inexperienced that the following year when I came back, because I'd worked there during the summer, the following year when I came back, you know, again, I'm killing it in commissions, and I'm feeling great. And they're like, we want to make you assistant manager. And I was like, wow, blown away.
But you lose your commission.
You make less money.
Of course.
You get more responsibility and less, but they don't tell you that part.
They don't.
Because I've got stars in my eyes. Like, I'm going to get to open the store. I'm going to get to close the store.
Right.
Like, hell yeah. I'm going to get to tell people I'm the
Moving
assistant
up.
manager. Like,
Yeah.
this is great.
But you make half the paycheck.
You make half the paycheck. And I just didn't know better. And I think that early on, the money that I was making working in retail, it empowered me. Like, I didn't feel
Started
like
a fire inside of
victim.
you.
Yeah, and it gave me, it made me feel like, wait a minute, I'm getting some of my power back, because the first few years of my life as a mother, I couldn't earn any money. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go get a job, not because I had a baby, but because I was legally too young. So I was very just, I can say now looking back, like I was depressed. I didn't know that that's what that was, but I felt like hopeless and helpless. Like just, and you know, we didn't receive welfare. That wasn't a thing. I come from a poor working class family. My mom has always worked 2 jobs, always. Like right now she's working 1, but you know, she's almost 70 years old, but majority of her life, because she didn't have an education and she had to take care of her family really young, she always had to work 2 jobs to make the equivalent of 1 good paying job. And, you know, so because she worked and I fell under her income, you know, we never got any government support. And, you know, we're like flipping couch cushions looking for change to go buy the next can of milk or, you know, the next package of diapers. And I'm feeling like such a burden. You know, so I had a mix of emotions going on, like I'm a failure, I'm a burden. We already have a difficult life. I just made it even more difficult. So when I was able to work, which was actually at 15, I worked as a hostess at a restaurant. That was actually my first job. But I was just you just make what you make, whatever that was back then, $7 an hour, whatever. Actually, probably $5.25. Probably what. But even then, I made just enough every week to buy diapers and milk for that week. And that was like,
Weight off your shoulders.
Yeah.
it made me feel stable, right? But then when I got, you know, turned 16, well, now I can work at the mall and I start making the commissions. And when you grow up poor and you get money for the first time, which you think is real money, you feel invincible. You think you are like, right? So then I didn't want to go back to school. You know, I didn't want to go back to school my senior year because I'm like, I'm making money.
Yeah.
And I got a child to feed. I gotta keep going. And I had that hustler mentality because I was a survivor, right? Mm-hmm. Now I stay away from that, right? Because I understand that is a survivor mentality. So I haven't allowed myself to stay in that my whole life because that's very detrimental because it's fear-based. You know, anytime I start to feel like I've got to hustle, I got to make something happen, I know it's because I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I know it's that fear from that 13-year-old girl that doesn't know where the next can of milk is coming from. It's deep rooted way back there.
Yeah.
Now, even, thinking back, of course, those times were rough.
Yeah.
They were terrible. You wouldn't want to do it again. But don't you think that's a huge contributor to the person you are today?
Oh, it is the contributor.
That adversity made you this successful person.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Is it the route or the journey that you would co-sign for somebody? No, because there's a lot of trauma involved in it.
Right.
So much trauma that had to be, that I had to work through and unravel. But it was my journey. And it's a story that, I can speak to and tell, but the bigger and better story is that's where it started, and this is where I'm at today. And I know that I'm made of some things that everyone else doesn't have. And I don't think I'm special. Matter of fact, I know I'm not. I've just allowed myself to grow and evolve. And all those years that I gave my power away, I've taken those lessons, and now it's kind of been like, a part of my purpose to help others find like their inner personal power. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't know what it was like to feel like I had none.
Sure.
Yeah. Total agreement. It's I'm speechless because it's an amazing story. It's an amazing journey that you've had this far. And, you're facing all these different adversities of life, especially with a child at a young age.
Yes.
And I always think about stuff like that, even when kids are 16, not even 13. I'm just like, I see it.
I thought I had my kids young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're only 19.
Yeah, right.
I was like, is he for real? Because he looks like he could be.
We always talk about he drinks from the fountain of youth, you know, but he's like, 32.
About to be 33.
33.
Ooh, big time.
I know,
So he's creeping.
Yeah.
He's creeping, but he's everybody thinks it's my kid. And it's like there's like a 5-year difference.
Yeah. Everywhere we go.
It's like, is this your son? I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
sometimes. Not it depends.
spirit.
Like spirit, right? It's my spirit child.
Your bonus son.
Exactly. He's I've already got 4 sons. I don't need another one.
Wow, you have 4 sons.
I've got 4.
Woo.
My oldest graduates tomorrow.
Wow.
And it's he's seen me hustling my whole life, his whole life.
Yeah.
And so and that's kind of where that came from. I spent so much time chasing, I thought it was financial freedom just so we didn't have to look at our bank account, because we were paycheck to paycheck for years and years and years and years, because we had our first kid at 19, right after we turned 19.
Right.
And it was like one kid every like 22 months. It's like, this is kind of like the rotation of the world happened every 22 months. Like, okay, that's how that works.
Right.
And so, so I did the 2-job thing.
Yeah.
For a lot of years, I stumbled into one.
Right.
And it's like that one is what led me down this road. And then I did it for everybody else with that same type of drive and that hustle. And that's the things that built you along the way.
Right.
And, but then I lost sight of my family along the way.
Yes.
And it sucks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hard. I'm trying to, figure my own balance out, but also preaching to people, don't be like me. You know what I mean? You can have cool things, you can be successful, but focus on those people who are going to cry at your funeral.
Right.
Right? Not the millions of people on your Facebook page or
Right.
Instagram. What is the best piece of advice someone's given you along the way that you always think about from time to time?
So there are teachers that I've had in my life along the way, some that I've never met, some where I've just like studied their work. Because I do definitely consider myself like a student always of self-improvement, personal development, and even have to watch that because I think anything can be an addiction, like literally anything.
Yeah.
But one thing that I learned probably about 6 years ago that I wish I had learned, in my 20s, when we're talking about mentoring, anytime young women call me, text me for advice, I share this message because I'm like, oh my gosh, if they can get this right now, it'll change your life. And that advice is on like understanding how you betray yourself and how to not do that. And when I think about any type of relationship I'm going to get into, it's a professional relationship, personal relationship, I have to ask myself if I'm betraying any part of myself to be in this partnership. And if the answer is yes, then I don't want to be a part of it. And a lot of times, or for years, for a long time, I did not trust my intuition. I always felt like somebody else was more qualified and knew the best way to go over what my own spirit was telling me. I just didn't trust myself. And now I trust myself, and I trust that when I feel like I'm betraying myself by making this decision, then I walk away from the table. And I think if we can ask ourselves some questions and slow down before we respond to a decision, we'll make better decisions.
I mean, that's a really good piece of advice. It's people don't spend enough time on self at all.
Right.
It's,
I agree.
we're too busy. Don't worry about me. I got this. And then you really don't slow down, focus, and mentally prepare yourself and know your self-worth.
Right.
Self-worth is, I struggle from that too.
Big.
It's I have my good days and my bad days, but then I'm like,
Sure.
what is my self-worth?
Sure. Well, at least you're asking yourself.
Yeah.
Reflection, right? We don't slow down enough to even self-reflect and ask ourselves the questions.
Yeah.
So, that's great that you're doing that, because I think or at least I did for a long time, I assumed that everyone will get to that point where they will seek to change, evolve, become enlightened in whatever way that means to them. And I have learned that no, most people actually are not interested in doing their work. Most people are not interested in being quiet and sitting still, sitting in solitude, because it requires you to sit with your busy. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And people don't want to be uncomfortable. That's why you can sit in a phone and disassociate.
Yeah, you stay busy, right?
Stay busy.
And that's
busy being busy.
To me, that's the evil parts of the world is keep you busy, keep your mind off of what's really important, and that's inner self.
Yeah.
And you're right. Self-reflection is huge, but that's why mental illness is such a huge thing right now. Because something drives it, and part of that, is you have to focus on yourself to figure out what it is. And that can go back to childhood traumas. That can go back to anything that is driving you, but also killing you at the same time mentally. And
I think if you're always trying to prove yourself, always trying to prove your worth, you're going to end up in a heap of trouble, because that's exhausting. And you're seeking it outside of yourself, and you'll never get it. And it only comes with more bad experiences, more trauma stacked upon trauma, more because now someone has betrayed you, someone's broken your heart, someone's this, and you stay a victim, and you don't realize that you're making these choices subconsciously because you don't think you actually deserve this job, this relationship, this house, this peace. I shared this story. I think I've shared it on every podcast. When I had a bout with panic attacks, and it came at the most odd time of my life. Like, I've reinvented myself a handful of times in my lifetime. Again, serial entrepreneur, and I've tried businesses and failed. Tried businesses, succeeded, and went, okay, how do I do that again in this thing, right? Always curious. been like that since I was young. My mom will tell you, like, I'm a rebel, totally. But I was like in the best place of my life. I mean, I am today, but meaning I was consistently at a place of like continual growth and, seeing success, and also watching like my kids, thrive, and they're healthy and they're good. Everything is stable, and I'm not worried about anything. And I started having bouts with panic attacks, and, I went to see a therapist, and, you've got 60 minutes and it's your first visit, and, we gotta go high and in the weeds real quick. And I'm like, damn, my story in 60 minutes. Here we go. So I'm like, boom, boom, boom. Childhood was this, da, da, da. Okay, I had a baby, da, 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 da. We spit it all. And I'm like, listen, like, life is good. So what the hell's going on? Because I don't have time to continue to feel this way when nothing is wrong in my life. And she's like, all right, you ready? I was like, yes, I'm ready, give it to me. And she said, because of your childhood and everything that you've experienced, you have complex PTSD, and your mind has been conditioned for chaos and war. That's what you're accustomed to. Your brain has no idea how to deal with peace and
Just
stability.
Constant fight or flight.
I had constant fight or flight. I'd never had consistent stability. I'd had moments of it, seasons of it, but never consistent. And then I definitely attracted and chose chaotic relationships. I know chaos.
That
like,
helps.
I'm a pro.
They're
like,
so fun though.
or just, but even in business, like, let's say your business is, pardon my French, let's just say it's a shit show and you need to hire someone to come in and clean it up. Like, that's me. I can run into that fire. I can run into that chaos with no problem and fix it and set you up and help you fly. That sounds great. But again, what I say earlier, what you do in your personal is what you also do in business.
Yeah.
So I was like a magnet for the most chaotic, I'm not even going to say worse people, because they were not, they were good people, just not good for me. But if they were like in some type of turmoil or chaos, there I go.
Yeah.
Sign me up, because I know that. Yeah. I know that way better than I know like healthy relationships, healthy, loving relationships. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, that's
I mean, I do now, but just in
throughout the process,
you don't even know.
Yeah, it's it's
war. Like,
I'm glad your
literally
therapist
war
said
for
something,
that.
because mine went 3-4 hours and only charged me for one session, and I was like, oh, that's cool. We didn't accomplish anything, but I did that 3 times, so 3 hours apiece for a 1 hour session. And I pretty much just like, I don't need to go back because I got it all off my chest. I just healed myself.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? You're living a shit show. So you know what? Let's get it together, big boy. And that's what I told myself. And then, God decided to humble me. And it changed my life. Yeah. And now I'm here on a podcast with you. Yeah. And I'm ready to go make a whole bunch of female entrepreneurs and tackle like pay inequalities.
Right.
You're right. So it's wild. It's a wild journey, isn't it?
It is a wild journey.
It's difficult. At this point in the show, it's starting to come to a wrap and a close. What can we tell the audience? Let's focus that on the female audience, right? Let's talk about the girls who are facing the same struggles you did. Mm-hmm. They're just getting their start in life. They're working a couple jobs. They could be in a relationship or not in a relationship, and then they might be in a bad relationship. But they have a dream. Yeah. Like, what message can we give them? Right. To start that dream?
Yeah, you've got to walk towards it, and it's one step at a time. You've got to crawl before you walk. There's no such thing as instant gratification. If it's easy money, it's fast money, it's not going to last. Take your time. Don't look for a handout. This is a hand up. So if people want to help you, you've got to also pay close attention to what are their motives, right? Anything that you do decide to do in partnerships, you get it in writing. I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast on deals I've done where I didn't have things in writing, right?
Yeah, that handshake doesn't seem to work out for everybody, right?
Does not.
It works for me, but the people I've handshake with, and nothing came out of it.
Right.
And that's what's made me who I am today.
The other thing I would say is don't worry about being firm about what you want to do, what you don't want to do. This is what your services are. You don't want to bend, maneuver away from that. And now there's expectations because you're taking on scope that's not really what you do. Stick to what you do. Don't deviate away from that until you garner the skill set to, possibly add things on. But yeah, get things in writing. You have to build relationships. You have to get out from behind your desk, your computer at home, wherever you're working. You have to get out. You have to go meet people. I do not love networking, which surprises people because I'm business development for a living. That's what I do. Networking events that are specifically for networking, cannot stand them, loathe them. But I have learned that you still have to show up because out of a room of 500, you only need to meet one that can change the trajectory of your business. The more one-on-ones you can get, the better, but that takes time. It takes skill set. And don't worry about people thinking that, you're a bitch because you're being direct about what you want. I find that women are so afraid that they're going to get that label put on them that they end up agreeing to things that they don't want to do because they just want to be liked, they want to be accepted, and they fear that label. And it happens to us all the time. If you know who you are, you know what you want, you know you're qualified to do X, Y, Z, and you say, well, no, thank you, this is what it is, then all of a sudden, they'll pick up the phone and call you and be like, she was such a bitch. Well, no, she was just firm in what she has to offer, and you didn't want to pay for that service, and that's okay. But it happens to women in business all the time. If you worry about someone thinking you're a bitch for standing up for yourself and your business, you're going to have a really hard time in business. The more you can worry less about what people think about you, the better off you're going to be. Yes, keep your reputation on point, but you can't worry about people that aren't decision makers in what they think about you. Provide the service you say you're going to provide it with excellence, provide it on time, and you will get repeat business.
That's facts.
Yeah.
Under promise and over deliver.
Exactly.
And it's that's the key
It
to
works.
it. And don't sound like a salesman. Nobody wants to use car salesman. Okay, so just go in there. You're making friends and family, not customers, not clients, and it all comes to you.
Right.
And that's been the biggest tool for me.
Yes.
Is that I walk into a room, 15 people, and there's no strangers when I leave, and it's like they're friends, right? They're potential clients,
Right.
But treat them like humans and
just be yourself.
Yeah.
Anytime I've not been myself,
Never works out.
never works out. You got to be able to let your hair down within reason because you're still, it's professional, right? But just be yourself. Don't feel like you got a code switch, right?
Facts.
People really appreciate authenticity.
Yeah, Eric, be yourself.
Big time.
I'm trying.
Are you?
I really have to.
Then
go
why
to
did you
the bathroom.
shave? You should have kept your beard for this.
I should have.
Yeah.
My bad.
You cleaned up for me?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
clean
like
shaven.
Big guess.
He's like, man, I don't know. I got a like baby face. I want to think I'm 40.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Exactly.
But Shandra, it's been a complete blessing to have you on the show, and I
you.
feel like
Absolutely.
this is just the beginning of this relationship. I think I can learn a lot, and you can really help
Same.
guide me along the way too.
I have so many questions for you.
And I've just got it's definitely just the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have you back in, and but it's really been a pleasure.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Right.
Guys, that's a wrap for Select Few for today.
Oh, thank God.
Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere that our producer Friday sticks our podcast. You should watch it, subscribe, like us, tell your friends, your family. And you women out there, you can do it.
Go
But
get the money.
don't be just a dreamer, be a doer.
That's right.
We got this.
Right.
Bye, guys.
I got so much on my plate, you know I can't wait. Been out in Pipeline and there's my money on the way. I get all my takes out.